it really surprised me that how many things are depleted because of these drugs.
Really?
Sure.
It did. I mean, a lot more than what I thought.
This is Generation Health. Every week we bring you news, cutting-edge research, and time-tested best practices helping you live a longer, better life. Sitting to my right, Dante DiMatteo, registered pharmacist, certified strength and conditioning specialist. How are you, sir?
Good, Tyler. How are you?
I'm doing better.
Good.
And opposite me, Joyce Gibb, nurse practitioner, certified in family medicine and certified in functional medicine as well.
That's it. Thanks for having me today. Good job.
I'm your host, Tyler Andrews, and occasionally I don't stumble over my tongue. On today's show, we're going to talk about a ton of different things, a lot of questions, macros and depression, questions about antidepressants, questions about collagen and constipation. Not that those things go together, but there they are. But really the most important question, the thing I want to know more than anything else. Joyce, I know you don't know what it is.
I don't.
I'm so excited. It's not that big of a deal. What fashion trend did you follow when it was cool that in hindsight now looks pretty ridiculous?
Well, I tell you what, it's coming back in style because I am that old. Bell bottoms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hip huggers.
Yep.
With a belt. And then platform shoes.
Platform shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was kind of looked silly. But you
made
did
you taller.
That? Do you have lots of photos?
Well, I do have some, but I will not show them to you.
Oh, what do you think? I'm going to superimpose them over here?
Maybe. Over something.
Dante?
I don't know. Maybe
you're too young.
Maybe I'm way off base here, but I feel like right now almost anything is accepted.
This is true.
It's so weird.
That is true.
Like you're hard pressed to think of anything that, I mean, I guess if you look at an old photo, like there's still going to be a discrepancy, but yeah, between the bell bottoms, the platform shoes, the skater gear, the skate looking fat sneakers, jerseys, fitteds, snapbacks, flat brim, bent brim. I mean, like all the weird stuff that we went through, like you're being accepted for all those things.
It's true. You just have your own people now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can't really,
Is there anything you regret?
Oh man.
Even if the rest of society still says it's cool.
I mean, I went through a phase where I refused to cut my hair.
Yes.
I was like age 11 and 12. And here we are.
Now you're back there again.
However many years, almost 20 years later, I refuse to cut my hair. So
yes, you do.
But I at least keep it in this bun. So
which
I think that's a little, is that better or is it worse?
I have to ask you the question I asked my brother. You've got this long hair, but you always keep it pulled up.
I know.
So why have the long hair?
I don't know. I guess there is something stylistically appealing about the bun, right?
It's fine. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
And you have such good thick hair. Your hair would look good down.
Thanks, Joyce.
You should do a podcast with it down one time.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe our next episode will instead of changing my shirt, we will change the hair.
Oh man, you're telling everybody our secrets. There's a laundry list of things I could point to. I had about a minute and a half where I wanted to try out being a hippie. So I had a friend make a hemp necklace and I put it on and immediately broke out in a rash.
Nice.
So I got to avoid that for the most part. I don't think there's any photos of that. The puka shell thing, that was hip when I was in high school. Honestly, the biggest thing, and I'm really sorry, Auntie Lane, but the mullet was a bad call. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it was like 89. So,
but even now,
people still wear them.
The top CrossFitter, he's had a mullet for like 2 years.
Well, they call it a wolf cut now, which makes it okay, apparently.
Yeah.
Have you seen the skullet?
The skullet?
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, don't Google it. It'll give you nightmares.
Oh, man.
All right. This is an email from Shelly. If you have questions, send them to questions@askjoedimatteo.com. Shelly wanted to know, what nutrients do antidepressants take from our bodies, specifically SSRIs, SNRIs, antipsychotics, etc.? Thank you so much, Shelly. Joyce,
so
you know this stuff.
I tell you, when I was reviewing all this, it really surprised me that how many things are depleted because of these drugs.
Really?
Sure.
It did. I mean, a lot more than what I thought. So, and I'm just going to review this. This is a pretty long list of things, but like CoQ10, and almost all these are from SSRIs.
Okay.
Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, all the typical Zoloft, all those type of drugs. So like CoQ10 is depleted because of SSRIs and antipsychotics. Magnesium, SSRIs, and stimulants. So anybody's on Adderall gets depleted or Ritalin or Concerta or anything like that. It depletes magnesium. Melatonin, that helps with sleep.
Yeah.
If you're on an SSRI, benzos, and antipsychotics, it depletes melatonin, which you would think that would be the opposite because SSRIs recirculate serotonin, which then breaks down to melatonin. So to me, that was a surprise.
Wow.
Down the chain of biochemical reactions.
Yeah.
So that was a surprise. Niacin, which helps with your vessel health, is depleted by antidepressants. B6, which is depleted by antidepressants, benzodiazepine like Valium, et cetera, Xanax. And those drugs, because they deplete B2 also, in addition to B6. B12 and folate, SSRIs, benzos, antipsychotics like Seroquel, Abilify, anticonvulsants. Glutathione is depleted by SSRIs. Vitamin D is depleted by SSRI.
Wow.
Benzos and antipsychotics. And the last one basically is vitamin C is depleted by antidepressants, stimulants like Adderall, antipsychotics. So basically, if you're on any of these drugs, especially SSRIs, you need to be on CoQ10, magnesium, melatonin, B2, B3, which is niacin and riboflavin, B6, B12 and folate, glutathione, vitamin D, and vitamin C.
Wow.
They deplete all those things.
So a multivitamin like our daily essentials is going to cover some of that.
Some of the Bs.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a little bit of the D.
Man, oh man, that's
a little bit of magnesium.
That's quite the list.
Yes.
I had no idea. Okay.
It is tough too. And this is not to contradict per se anything that Joyce was saying. It just seems as though, so you look at a lot of the conditions that are obviously being treated with these medications, whether it's, panic disorders, generalized anxiety, depression, all this kind of stuff. Who knows if some of these deficiencies and, maybe to what extent they're actually deficiencies, minor, moderate, when they're being tested, all this kind of stuff. Are they a reflection of the different disease states?
Right.
Or status that the issues that they're having? And then of course they're on one or two or three of these medications because there's obviously
more than one issue.
Yes. And there's comorbidities. And then sometimes you're on an SSRI and then you're on a benzo for breakthrough sort of situations, or you're on, an antidepressant during the day and then you're on something different for sleep. Is it the actual conditions that are also contributing to this? Is it the combination of all those medications that are leading to it? And then there's obviously medications that are just more or less likely to cause them.
Right.
And so then what we see with these, in these databases is it's hard to parse out.
There's so much.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's all, it's a possibility with many of these, but it's like, there aren't great nutrient tests that you can then go run with people to say for sure it's, oh man, it's definitely your sertraline that's causing this, or are you really deficient, or is this, it's just
we didn't test you before you started taking it.
Right.
So
who knows?
Exactly.
But we have like a NutriVal test that Genova does that can test a lot of these things right here that we just talked about.
Yeah.
To see if they are deficient. And it's a red blood cell analysis. So it's like a cellular analysis, not just, okay, you just have this whatever in the, in your bloodstream. So that's a lot of people really like that test because that really makes them feel like now they're getting to the root cause of what the deficiency is, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good point. There are many, man, we could probably break this down into 4 sub conversations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, it is interesting, to see that there are medications that you need to treat what you have going on, but the potential for these sort of underlying subclinical deficiencies, potentially it's a little, it can be additionally anxiety inducing for people.
Everything's a trade-off too. I mean, if you need an antidepressant because you are having suicidal thoughts or ideations or something like that, you need that. But if it's going to somehow pull things one direction or another in some other areas, what's the worth? What's it worth? Is it worth the trade-off? Yeah, probably in that case.
Yeah.
But we got to figure that out and try to help folks.
Yeah.
And a lot of these neurotransmitters that make GABA, that make, serotonin or the stimulatory side, they need the Bs.
Yeah.
So if anybody's going to do one thing, I think, to help their mental health is to do like a coenzyme B complete that we have, because it has all those things in them. And
Okay.
they're methylated forms of those too, so they're better absorbed also.
Very cool.
Yeah, good point.
That's excellent. All right. I like that. That was a good punchline. Thanks, Joyce.
You're welcome.
See, you're a pro. You know what you're doing.
Yeah, I do this every day.
That's it. We got this email from Neil. Neil said, I'm a vegan and have been for over a decade. Despite that, my cardiologist still thinks my cholesterol is too high. No specific number here, but he said his cardiologist says it's too high. I'm 67, on a statin, moderate dose, and exercise regularly. What else can I do? Should I cut out nuts and avocados to reduce fat intake?
Yeah.
I like nuts and avocados. That doesn't sound like a good option to me, but I'm not his cardiologist.
This one is another one that can be a little more complicated in trying to give a direct answer.
Yeah.
But like we've alluded to in other videos, other podcast episodes, a lot of times with these nutritional interventions specifically, it boils down to what are you replacing? But what are we replacing? So if you are cutting out nuts and avocados just in and of themselves, you're trying to reduce calories, let's say, I mean, maybe that would work for him. I don't know. But if you're saying I'm going to cut out nuts and avocados, I'm going to eat, inevitably I'm going to be a little hungrier. And so something's going to fill those gaps.
Right.
Maybe it's a little more carbohydrates. Maybe it's a little more of
Sugar,
something.
and that'd be worse.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little more sugar, something a little less desirable. So the key is always asking what are these trade-offs? What are these replacements? A more of a stock recommendation for people, I would say adding in nuts and avocados.
That's what I was going to say. That would be the opposite of what I'd recommend.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
But let's just say our guy Neil is eating 750 calories above maintenance or whatever. Let's just say that's in theory his issue. Then, reducing a little bit of fat intake as they are higher in calories per gram.
Mm-hmm.
That typically raises your LDL a little bit.
Yeah.
The good fats even do that too.
Yeah, so let's just say, right, it's a little more of a caloric issue, top-down approach. That would be an easy place to reduce some calories.
Sure.
But again, we don't know his whole sort of picture here. But as far as reducing cholesterol, I would say that, again, the nuts and avocados are examples of things that you would want to replace things like refined sugars and carbohydrates, replace things like certain red meats,
Right.
processed meats, processed foods.
Right.
Those are the things we want to replace with, whether that's avocado oils or olive oil or avocados themselves,
Flaxseed.
almonds, flaxseed. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a laundry list of things. Again, we want to figure out a way for Neil to kind of put those back in. I mean, because it sounds like, again, he likes those. He's like, should I cut these out?
Well, I mean,
And it's
if he's a vegan, he doesn't have a whole lot more beyond that. So
Right.
there's not, I mean, the meats, I had that thought when I saw that, but of course he's not eating meat
yeah.
or the dairy. So that's
Right.
fascinating. But you're saying,
Yeah.
so you're talking about reducing, because we've talked about cholesterol before.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about, if I remember right, adipose tissue directly influences LDL cholesterol levels. Is that correct?
Sure.
is.
Yeah, that's a huge component. And then also the types of dietary fats that you're consuming.
Okay.
Also your level of calories, all of that
Right.
plays a
So
role
if
as well.
he's overeating, calorically speaking, you said beyond maintenance level,
Mm-hmm.
then it's entirely possible that just by pulling down
Mm-hmm.
caloric levels, he reduces those things and it pulls down that LDL-C.
Yeah. And I also don't want this to get lost in the sauce either, because this goes along, right along with what you're saying. The cut point, the stock recommendation that's out there as far as saturated fat goes, and this will fluctuate a little bit, depending on if somebody's keto or if they have different preferences or they're just maybe at a little bit less risk of, cardiovascular events for whatever reason.
Right.
We're aiming for, at least I'm aiming for, or making the recommendation to aim for less than 10% of your calories to come from saturated fat. And so that's hard because not all of us are sitting at home calculating calories.
Right.
But that's just it for me. That's try not having red meat every single day.
Right.
For some people, that's not, maybe cutting it down from twice a day to once a day.
Right.
Or
make it be a treat a couple times a week. And those are all part of the macronutrients that we were talking about. You've heard of macronutrients, and so that's the protein, that's the carbs, and then basically the fat.
Yeah.
That this all encompasses all this. And I think, usually typically like somebody that's doing a keto diet, they have a higher fat, higher meat intake, and fish, chicken, and all that too, and less carbs.
Yep.
And I think really that's one of the best diets for diabetics because they don't need glucose or sugar to convert to cause inflammation.
Right.
To, raise their A1C and their glucose levels. So
yeah, it's a viable option. Again, we don't want to lose sight of somebody's preference either.
Sure.
That could easily be Neil's preference here as well.
Because it has to be sustainable over time.
it does.
Okay.
Yeah. And
that makes sense.
And then also what you said kind of at the outset, we don't know what his cholesterol is. It would be, the more and more we learn about cholesterol, we're seeing that there's the, there's the influence of looking at the actual LDL particles.
Right.
Looking at
size and number.
Yes. Looking at something like ApoB.
Yep.
Which is going to be potentially a better indicator of what the cholesterol is looking like in your blood. There's Lp(a), which is something that, let's just say he's managed to do everything that he could from a dietary perspective, and he just still has this persistently high cholesterol marker. And it turns out that his Lp(a), which you have little control over, it's
more genetic.
It's a genetic
factor.
impact. And again, that's not necessarily LDL-C.
Right. We don't know.
But the point is the whole cholesterol conversation is a big one. And, having more details, and Joyce is the one, not me, working with patients directly. And these would be all part of the question, part of the screening process to make a better recommendation.
How high is high?
Yes. But those are some little tidbits for, I guess, Neil to research and ask more questions and, understand that cholesterol panel a little better. Try to just view this whole thing as, okay, again, what am I replacing this with? There's always going to be trade-offs. To think that you're just going to eliminate one thing from your diet and that's the end of it is generally kind of unlikely. There's going to be something just, by human nature that you're going to replace it with.
Yep.
So,
and he's vegan.
Giving him more questions.
The vegan, usually they don't want to do omega fish oil because it's marine derived fish, usually from some type of fish. And so that's when we use flaxseed or flax oil that part of what he could introduce to just maybe to help raise his LDL and lower his HDL a little bit. So, and one
you said
thing
that backwards, the other way around, right?
Yeah. So
raise
you want
HDL,
to
lower LDL.
Yeah, but you want to sometimes your LDL is some people is actually low and you want to raise it, but that doesn't happen as often. But correct.
Okay.
No, that's good. We don't want to.
I want to make sure we're saying everything. But no, okay, cool. Very cool.
And then the other thing is, most of the plaque and everything starts with foam cells and inflammation. So, the diet that he's doing is an anti-inflammatory diet by what he's saying, getting rid of nuts and, and avocados or whatever. That's more of an anti-inflammatory diet. So, we don't know a lot of the information here, but.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I feel bad. I know I jumped on the red meat thing. I somehow managed to gloss over the fact that he was a vegan. Again, more speaking hypothetically.
But it's true for, we're talking to everybody, not just Neil.
Right. And so in his case, again, not to, be too repetitive. It's in his case, it's theoretically watching more of then the the refined carbohydrates, the highly processed foods, which become good options for vegans because you are a little more limited in some of your food selection. So thank you for making that, for reminding me of that.
That's okay.
Good points. All right. Well, we have this study popped out. This is from SciPost. Says higher protein consumption is associated with lower levels of depressive symptoms, study finds. A study in Switzerland found that adolescent athletes, this is a very specific group of people, adolescent athletes who consumed more protein in their diets had lower levels of depressive symptoms. The study was published in Psychology of Sports and Exercise. The food we eat is comprised of different components. These include so-called macronutrients such as carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. You mentioned those, but also micronutrients such as vitamins and minerals. Macronutrients are nutrients that humans need a lot of, while micronutrients, as the name would imply, are needed in relatively small amounts. Both types of nutrients are essential for our health and well-being. Results showed that at the start of the study, 13.9% of the participants reported moderate to severe levels of depressive symptoms. At the second assessment, roughly a year later, that percentage was 11.4. But it's only 11 versus 9 participants. So this is not a large study.
No.
Okay. I hear you snickering. Joyce, tell me about macronutrients. You said a little bit already, but go for it.
So I think the big thing that people look at are the protein. How much protein do you need? The one thing you have to be careful, somebody that has renal failure or issues with their kidneys, they shouldn't eat a lot of protein because it's harder to break down, and that can raise their creatinine and lower their GFR, which is the fluid filtered per minute through your kidneys.
Okay.
So, but like just as a rule of thumb, and you can do this in kilo weight or pound weight, and it's usually, a pound per 1 pound per kilo of protein that's necessary. Some people use a half. So everybody's a little bit different, but there's a range 0.8 to 1.8 grams of protein per kilo, basically, per pound. Well, it's per pound because, so you just do one. I think one's easy, like say you eat 65. If you're like 140 pounds or something, maybe you'll get 65 grams of protein a day. And that's the baseline. If somebody wants to try to gain weight and do better, if they're been in the hospital for a long time, lots of times their protein drops and their albumin drops, like with cancer that happens, then you try to get like our protein smoothies. That has 20 to 30 grams of protein depending on how much you use. But it's a higher amount of protein, low amount of carbs that people can consume, and it'll really help their overall health. So
all right. Are there normal recommended ratios for macronutrients other than just we should probably eat some more protein?
Ranges.
They range.
There definitely are some ranges that we could recommend for a lot of people. That's a cart before the horse kind of thing, potentially.
Okay.
Even just, working with the number of calories in general can be a lot. Just, again, just depending on the motivation of the person, where they sit, are they just getting out of the hospital? Right. Are they going to be worried about
all the different situations,
these numbers and such? So looking at first of all, looking at your total caloric intake, even before protein or at the same time as looking at protein, is absolutely critical.
Okay. Just
as far as knowing, where do you sit, at your current body weight level? Do you need to lose weight? Are you okay at maintenance? Do you need to are you somebody that needs to gain weight?
Right.
Starting there and then shooting for that 1 gram per pound is just, if you notice, we trimmed a lot of numbers there.
Yeah.
And that's not like a hard roll necessarily, but it is somewhere in the middle of many of the recommendations that are out there.
Right.
So 1 gram per pound for somebody that's 150 pounds, 140 pounds, they're only used to eating 60 grams a day.
Yeah.
To then double your increase.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
It's very difficult. And that's daunting when you have to grocery shop. That's daunting when you actually sit down and you look at this meal in front of you of all this meat or all this yogurt or protein
if they can't
powder.
eat, they're not hungry, you don't have an appetite.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. There's so much there. So I hate, sometimes with the numbers and the ratios and the percentages, sometimes you just get it's so easy. It's 40 What do you mean? Just eat 40% of your calories from carbohydrates. That's enough to perform well and do what you got to do. And then 20% from fat, that's safe. As much as we want to recommend that and want to follow that, it is hard. It is hard. So at least if you are the person that says, the heck with it, I'm going to do it. I want to know exactly where I sit from a numbers perspective. Again, you get that total number of calories. How do you get that number of calories? One of the best recommendations I have for doing so, there are apps out there, food tracking apps that will help you through this. But the NIH, the National Institute of Health, they have something that's called the Body Weight Planner. And you go on and you answer a few questions, you plug in a few spots, you give it your goal, basically. You tell it how much rough activity you carry out on a daily basis, and then it'll spit out a rough calorie range of what it would take for you to maintain your weight, what it would take for you to lose a pound per week, 1 pound per week or 2 pounds per week or whatever. So
it's a lot of tracking.
It's a lot of tracking, but filling it out is very easy. And at least if you want a number, it'll give you the number. And, there's a lot of variation in these numbers. It's, individuals' physiologies will play a role here.
Right.
This is going to be a rough estimate.
Yeah.
But again, this is just the starting point.
Yeah.
So then once you have that number, like Joyce said, we shoot for the 1 gram per pound or maybe a little less, which is a little bit less is fine too. Again, especially as
Probably more than what they're getting.
anything, right. Generally, it's going to be more than what they're getting. And if you're shooting for, 20, 30, 40 grams potentially of protein per meal, if you eat 3 or 4 meals per day and maybe a snack, let's say, that gets you pretty darn close, right? So 20 to 40 grams of protein per meal from higher quality sources. You got your total number of calories. And then that's when you can start to, focus on the other macronutrients.
Right.
And to neatly summarize that, the carbohydrate and fat portion, the 2 remaining macronutrients, I think that's where a lot more personal preference comes in.
Okay.
And so, for example, if somebody likes to have a little more fat in their diet or a little less fat in their diet, or they are an endurance athlete and they prefer a little bit of a higher carbohydrate intake,
right?
That's when you can see that John over here has 45% of his calories or 50% of his calories from carbohydrates because he's a runner. And then you have Jane over here who, having a little bit of extra fat, avocados, nuts, Neil, he's maybe on that side of the spectrum.
Yep.
They shift to 20 to 30% of their calories from fat. And so I wouldn't get lost in that. We could give you more ranges
Don't focus
for that.
on the macros specifically.
Yeah, it's tough. Again, it boils down to the specific individual and what amount of meticulous tracking they're going to be looking for.
Yeah.
And then lastly, what will help you kind of square the circle would be how do I get these micronutrients? How do I ensure that I'm getting enough micronutrients?
Right.
So if you aim for foods that need cooked, you aim for whole foods, the minimally processed foods, kind of, again, those stock recommendations that we continue to make time and time again.
Yep.
As you focus on those, you'll notice that things will automatically start to come together for you. You'll be hitting a reasonable amount of carbohydrates if that's what you're focusing on. Like,
right.
how am I going to get these micronutrients? They're coming from whole foods without laundry lists of
food is medicine.
Yeah.
They're coming from there's not 100 ingredients on the package list. And that, again, just helps you worry less about, is it 25%, 30%, 42%?
Right.
Just picking foods from the right categories can help you fill out the rest of your goals, knowing that you picked your total calorie intake, knowing that you are getting close to your protein goals.
Okay. So pulling it back for a second, because we went deep into macronutrients. We're not talking about the study here.
I know.
Why aren't we talking about the study, Dante?
So,
you can reduce depression in elite adolescent athletes if they just eat more protein.
Yeah, I wish. I mean, that's a fascinating study. Mechanistically, it makes sense as to why they would want to look at something like this.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at in a very rudimentary way, you look at the makeup of neurotransmitters. You have these amino acids. You need adequate dietary protein to then have a adequate
amino acids.
You need to have an amino acid pool to pull from to carry out the various metabolic processes in the body, including neurotransmitter production in the brain. And so, in a very crude reductionist way, you could see where this way of thinking comes in. But just to even jump to the limitations here, you see that they didn't really focus on their overall dietary pattern.
Right.
So
No.
So I guess, like, how much can you really take from this besides we need a randomized control trial? We need some form of better methods, some better form of randomization to parse out details like this. Is there a minor correlation here? I guess, but again, they're not looking at these, individuals' overall dietary pattern. This could be attributed to a handful of things as far as the symptom reduction goes, right?
And the one thing I always say, athletes in general, especially elite athletes, they have bad guts.
Mm-hmm.
They have intestinal permeability and everything else, and they don't absorb nutrients well, especially runners,
Really?
And yes. So, they don't absorb nutrients. So then those nutrients, like Dante said, amino acids, they don't absorb the amino acids, and that's what makes up neurotransmitters.
Okay.
And, 70, 90% of serotonin, which is a calming neurotransmitter, is made in the gut. And if you have a bad gut, you're going to have depression.
Interesting. So why is what is the relation between athletes and high performance
They
athletes?
really high stress their bodies.
Oh, wow.
A lot of stress on their bodies.
Yeah. And that, Joyce, that's an interesting point, because I wasn't going to necessarily bring this up in that direct context, but not only are they high performers, elite athletes, but they're young people.
Yeah.
And
with bad guts.
that's right. They're young people under high amounts of stress competing.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
And
a lot of times they're given steroids because of their injuries, and that doesn't help your gut either.
Wow.
For sure.
Injections.
For sure. It's just that these sort of symptoms, depression, anxiety, it's not a lot of this is not it's not happening in a vacuum.
Right.
And so even though they're a part of the same group, they're on the same team, training at the same facility, you're having 9, 11, 20 different experiences here.
The difference between 11 and 9 is not a lot. And and that, a flip of the coin could change that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this study is just not really terribly helpful.
Yeah, and I think the problem is it's not that it's void of utility, it's just that adolescents in general, let alone high performing, elite athlete adolescents, they just don't typically pay as close attention to these, healthy dietary patterns, because they're worried about 9,000 other things. I'm, practically 30. We're all older. We've had plenty of time to think about these things. They're worried about their score. They're worried about the score of the game, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
that's a lot of stress.
It's a lot of stress, and I'm just not so sure that even though they are elite, how many things can they kind of worry about? They're still from as far as I can tell, it's like they're still in a learning process here.
If they're adolescents, then that's high school. That's you're dealing with tests, and you're dealing with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and mom's mad at me or whatever. I can understand why all of those things compiled, especially with the high performance athletics element of it, would be questionable on this front. All right. So fine. We'll just ignore it then. Moving on. You should eat more protein. Facebook message from Patty asks, is there anything we can do for a little 4-year-old, 50 pounds, that has had strep throat 4 times this year? I hate giving him antibiotics. Oh my goodness. A 4-year-old with strep throat 4 times?
Yeah. Yeah. I know this one hits home with a lot of people. It's kids, grandkids, in school right now. And strep is running rampant,
and they don't take tonsils out like they used to.
No. Yeah.
Because of the potential complications from that.
Yeah.
Is that would that eliminate or reduce the risk of strep throat? I didn't even realize that was connected.
That they don't take their tonsils out. Yeah. Because usually strep is the bacterial infection that associates that.
Okay. 4 times in a year. That's every 3 months at least. Is there any chance, and I guess, we can't talk to Patty and ask her, but is there any chance that maybe this is one infection that didn't quite go away?
That's potential that can happen. But the other thing that this might be happening, sometimes tonsils have little caves in them, almost like the moon.
Yeah.
And you get bacteria that's stuck in there. It's hard to get a 4-year-old to gargle, but you can always swish and spit with like scope or Listerine or something, daily, because that's where the bacteria lives in your tonsils. So And, you can get a full body infection. Strep can cause a lot of things, and it can cause heart issues. And so it's really difficult. The mom has to deal with the illness.
Yeah.
Why do they keep getting them? And she doesn't want to keep giving them antibiotics. And then the other thing, PANS and PANDAS, that can come from repeated strep, which is other issues. It's like other psychiatric issues that can happen from having repeated strep infections. So there's a lot to that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a challenge. I mean, I assume they've probably tried a different antibiotic or two. You know what I mean?
At this point, I would imagine.
Different culture techniques
because you do have to culture it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's strep B that grows out in the culture, and it's not strep A. And strep A is what the rapid strep tests for.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Yeah.
So how can we help her? What can she do to first help this little one not get sick? Mm-hmm. And then if they do, what should be done other than or in addition to or on the side of antibiotics?
Yeah. So, boost their immune system is the big thing. And, we actually have some Max Immune. It's like a chewable tablet that actually helps with some of that. It has D and zinc is a good nutrient that can help with any infection, COVID or whatever, and strep. And I think the big thing, for this little one is trying to do some kind of scope or Listerine, something that they like that tastes okay, because that's where it lives in your mouth and on your tonsils.
Okay, so
it's antibacterial. That's what scope or Listerine is.
Fantastic. So if they can just do gargling with something like that, that
even
should
vitamin D too.
Okay,
kids D.
That should help reduce the risk of getting sick.
Right.
Again. Okay. Very, very cool.
Don't drink after other kids.
Yeah.
Just the normal stuff.
Wash your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even, my goodness, just basic symptom management too.
Yeah.
Still, alternating and using some ibuprofen and Tylenol intermittently, as these if these bouts are recurrent, at least catching that at the front end to just improve how the little one's feeling up front is I think always okay as well.
Cool.
But that's a tough one. My goodness. I had a parent text me the other day about something about their child's amoxicillin that they were using for strep and like everywhere.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Things are getting around. All right. This one is from Rhonda. She said, "Hello, Generation Health." Hello, Rhonda. Collagen powder is all the rage for hair, skin, and nails. Thank you, Jennifer Aniston. But now I'm also reading that it's also beneficial for joint and gut health. I've read on different brand supplement labels that they contain different brands contain types 1, 2, or 3. What do the different types of collagen contain, and which types are beneficial for which need? I'm specifically interested in repairing intestinal permeability. That got some shout out today. Also, what do I need to look for in a high quality collagen supplement?
Okay,
Joyce,
that's a long question.
That was a whole. I'm just reading it. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just reading what she wrote.
Multiple. That's a consult right there.
Yeah.
So typically there's 3 main types of collagen: type 1, type 2, and type 3.
Okay.
So type 1 are the large collagen fibers. That's muscles, tendons, bones, hair, skin.
Okay.
A little bit of the intestinal tract. But like just as you look here, most collagen supplements are actually from the sources are usually beef or bovine, chicken or fish. Okay, those are the typical sources of collagen supplements. But then type 2, she asked about intestinal permeability. Type 2 really makes cartilage, and it gives elasticity and strength for optimal joint movement, but it's also best for the gut lining.
Okay.
And
so she specifically needs to be looking for type 2.
Yeah, but most collagens have all 3, or at least 2 of them. The better ones have at least 2, type 1 and type 2. There's also type 3, which is muscles, arteries, and organs. Type 4 is the layers of skin. Type 5 are the cornea of the eyes, some layers of the hair, skin.
Wow.
So, but most of them are just 2.
Okay. I didn't realize there were 5. Wow.
Yeah. So, and then she asked, what is the best, different brands? What are you supposed to look for? The ideal type of collagen is hydrolyzed collagen. And that's broken down into like amino acids, and it's easier absorbed. Okay. So what does hydrolyzed mean?
Yeah. What
Hydro
does that
is
mean?
water.
Yes.
Lyse is to bind or to unbind basically a chemical.
Okay.
And it's usually like an enzyme reaction, but it breaks down one or more chemical bonds. So that's what hydrolyze means. And, we have a couple different types of collagen that we have.
Oh.
And the one thing you have to, because of the source potentially with fish, chicken, and beef, you have to make sure somebody has an allergy to shellfish or fish or eggs. Then they have to be aware of getting that in a supplemental form.
Okay. So they can still, you can be reactive
You can.
to the supplement like that.
Yeah, because that's the source. So,
Got it.
so we have basically two, and collagen matrix is 1 scoop a day. And it's type 1 and type 2. And it's considered, it's on the label, it says Fortigel. And that stimulates collagen regeneration, okay? Which is different than just replacing it with collagen.
So regeneration meaning you're
Making
building your
more.
own.
Yes, you are.
Got it.
Correct. And it supports natural healing. And ours also has hyaluronic acid, which helps with joint lubrication, and cofactors C and magnesium.
Okay, cool. You said that was one of them. Is there another one?
We have a liquid.
Oh, okay.
Okay, collagen liquid. It's chocolate mint flavored.
Ooh.
And it has collagen, hyaluronic acid, vitamin C, cordyceps, biotin. Biotin's another form of like a collagen. And it's a Morocco marine collagen from tilapia.
Oh, I love tilapia.
And it's a half a teaspoon daily.
But tilapia doesn't
tablespoon
taste
daily.
like chocolate mint usually.
No, it doesn't.
So you said, what types of collagen were in the liquid? Is it the same? Is it 1 and 2 as well?
It's basically a marine type collagen, yes.
Okay.
It
All
is.
right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. That's
So the collagen
fantastic.
that we use, you can put it in tea, you can put it in coffee. Usually a drink that's heated, it tastes a little bit better because it doesn't clump up at all. But really, you can put it in cold drinks too, or you can make your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can make your own from use like meat bones or chicken bones and
Oh,
make
yeah,
your own
bone broth.
collagen bone broth.
Oh.
Yeah, put celery, carrots, put anything in it to drink it down.
My wife's really good at that. She makes bone broth on the regular, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and that helps your gut.
Oh,
Yes, that also helps your gut.
very cool. Well, all of our products are available on our website, Collagen Matrix Essentials and all the rest. That website is askjoedimatteo.com, askjoedimatteo.com. That site is also where you can sign up for our mailing list if you want to know when things go on sale. You can find past episodes of this show. You can find clips. You can find classic episodes of the show that started all of this, Ask the Pharmacist with Joe DiMatteo. If you have any questions, we want to hear about them. Email us, questions@askjoedimatteo.com. Show notes for this show and every one of them are available on the website as well. You'll find them in there. Every article we referenced, they're all there. If you want to spend some time consulting with Joyce, getting to the bottom of your specific health issues, maybe you wanted an email a question and didn't give us enough details, and so we had to be kind of ambiguous about the answer, call Joyce. We can set up some time for that. That is phone number 412-826-9500. That's our main line. You'll hit option 3, and you pick a time for a consult with Joyce. If you are listening, you are only getting half the fun because we make lots of faces at each other throughout this entire thing. Every episode is available online as video. Just go to YouTube or Rumble and look for Generation Health. Big thanks to Josiah Schweinberg running the cameras, Michael Deppish handling our editing. I don't have to shout you out because you're sitting right there. Joyce Gibb, our nurse practitioner who does private consultations. Diane Silverman handles our product. Terry does scheduling. Cecilia does distribution. Joey DiMatteo is not here today because Joyce is sitting
Taking
right
his
there.
place.
Yep, sorry. I should have written that out, but I didn't. So you get to be shout out like 3 times now. Dante DiMatteo.
Dessert. Well deserved.
I'm Tyler Andrews, and that is it for us this week. But now it is your turn. What are you going to do with what you have learned today? Are you just listening, being entertained? We appreciate that, but we would prefer you take what you've learned and put it into action. You can be part of this Generation Health.